like that's another part of this that's interesting, right? As we move on to on to Darnell Wright, who 6'5", 333 from Tennessee, 33.75-inch arms. Tennessee's produced some good linemen of late. Trey Smith was a 6th-round pick for the Chiefs. Has won a Super Bowl and a starter in this league for a while. Like they've done a good job there. Above average arm length. One of the things I find interesting though is he only had about 100 true pass sets last year. He gave up 4 pressures in them. 67th in college football. This is the guy again where once you start getting past, even I think in this class, the first couple guys, they need to go to a good team, and a good team that, much like Trey Smith, the guy can kind of blend in for a while before he becomes dominant.
Yeah, and I've said it a number of times, and I know you believe it. And a good team means a good O-line coach. Again, everyone, it's why O-line coaches are making $1.5 million to $2 million a year. I mean, some of the really good ones. I mean, it's going to be amazing. It is so important to make sure that you have an adept coach there that understands not only the system, but understands being able to really coach these guys. Because again, they don't have the same amount of time to train and practice like they used to years before and the pre-CBA. So again, I don't want to beat that point up, but it is legit. Don't ever forget that when you're talking about, the drafting of your O-line. And when you start talking about Tennessee football and you start talking about big old dudes, right? You're talking about a guy who, what's he, 330? What size?
333. The big guy.
The big guy. But the crazy thing is, I was thinking the other day, there are no 50s out there, right? Or at least I'm not seeing the 50s thrive in the 60s. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while, I felt like there was kind of a growing wave of that. I think that whole, 15 to 30 area is a good area to be in. You can be on the top end or the bottom end. I mean, this guy's a big dude. He obviously, he's a big guy who can occupy, right? We know that as a right tackle. His feet have some limitations, of course. He can get upright a little bit and slide off and slip off blocks. You want him to maintain more, right? That lack of sustain and finish, whether it's in the run game or the ability to mirror, slide and mirror, as we talk about in pass pro, there are limitations with him that way. Now, is he still going? Is he going by 25, do you think? I mean,
I think he gets pushed up, right? Like, I think this is – I mean, the hard part is now that we have Lane – so Jawan Taylor went for $20 million to the Chiefs. Lane Johnson is now kind of in that $25 million range, depending upon how you sort of slice it up. Like, I think right tackles are becoming somewhat of a sub-premium position, right? Where if you're happy taking that guy in the back half of the first, like you can still recoup the value there. Again, this is one where you may want to go to a team that has a dominant left tackle so that you can help the right tackle. I would not, I wouldn't necessarily want him right away to go to a team that needs him to have success for the offense to be competent. You think about, and maybe this is a good thing for you to discuss. Like, I remember 2 years ago when Kansas City lost Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz to injuries, kind of career enders more or less for those guys. I know Fisher kept playing, but like there was this sort of like dearth of linemen. There was a bunch in the top 15. There was a bunch in 45 to 60, but like they didn't see a guy who could just like play right away, play competently right away, right? And so they traded their first-round pick for Orlando Brown. Orlando Brown wasn't great, but he could at least play average football right away. I wonder if that's, when you think about Darnell Wright, like what's the likelihood there? There was an interesting thing that happened today. He like DM'd a blogger basically cussing him out for saying he was just a right tackle. I wonder, does that affect anything? Like, is that a maturity issue or whatever? Is that a play right away question that I think is interesting?
Well, look, I mean, we can't get away from the fact when we're grading people, as NFL scouts and as GMs, I mean, it's a big, big deal to make sure that you're honing in on the versatility, and again, there's a difference between the versatility. We used to not laugh about it, but we would have these intense discussions when one of our scouts would just continue to put, a slash on the behind the name of a guy. So right tackle / left tackle. Every time we turned around, there was a slash because they were just, it was a fence deal, right? They fenced the guy saying, oh yeah, he can play. Of course he can. This was my discussion with you earlier, right? Can a guy truly run? Even if he can take a step, he can run. Can he play? Yes. Is he adept enough to play the left side or play guard in the NFL and help us get through games? That's when you have to start thinking about the adeptness of being able to play on the other side. And, in this league, yeah, again, more than likely he's going to be a right tackle. I hope he doesn't DM me either. I mean, I'll let him hang. I mean, there are good things about him as a player, but he's the prototypical right tackle in my mind. And
Yeah.
and again, those guys can do amazing things. I mean, I love my guy Caleb McGarry. I think he's a right tackle. He wouldn't get mad at me if I told him he was a right tackle. Anchor in to know what you are. Isn't that Socratic thought, right? Isn't it like know what you are?
And being a right tackle is a couple things, right? Like it might be okay that you're not, but like, does anybody ding Von Miller for being a left edge?
No.
Does anybody, and like, I know Derek Thomas played both sides, but did any, like, Reggie White played on the left side of the defense a lot when he played in NFL. Like, the reason obviously that you want to be the left side is the quarterback's, blind side. And then but teams don't put their best edge player on the right side as much anymore. So that issue is not, and like, I think about Mitchell Schwartz, like when Mitchell Schwartz played for the Chiefs and won the Super Bowl, like he didn't give up a pressure that entire postseason. He was their stud tackle. It just happened to be that he played on the right. And I implore people a little bit to think about it this way. Like, it's not this drastic, but it's somewhat this way. Imagine trying to write left-handed for a living. If you're right-handed, like it is that hard. Like, you played sports. I was a high jumper in high school. Like, if you asked me to jump off my right foot over the bar, we have strong legs, we have strong arms, and like, it's not as drastic as writing and all that stuff, but it's significant. And if you've spent your whole career, pushing off of one leg in your kick step, and then they ask you to do it differently, you could learn it, but it's a projection on your end. And what you said and what's stuck with me this entire podcast so far is when you draft an offensive lineman high, there can't be that many unknowns, right? Because there's known unknowns, which is how the heck is he going to pass protect against the best athletes in the world who are playing across the field from him at defensive end?
Yeah, the unknowns are complicated. You just have to really be able to limit them as much as possible. Again, you have to know what you're getting as a draftable guy, right? It's a little different when you're out in free agency and you're pulling people in, right? I don't want to go too far off that way, but believe me, we've been on other sides where you bring in guys back to needs, right? Over needing, so to speak. And you bring in guys that you think we'll bring them in our system. We get them around our coach. We get them around our positivity. At least my last couple of years with Dan Quinn in our group, and we're going to make the most out of these players. We're going to pay them a lot, and they're going to thrive. They're going to have leadership ability. They're going to override some of the younger guys out there. And this could be because there might not be a real strong class of O linemen. You might tend to look and grab one or two O linemen that you really need, and then maybe draft one or two and know that they're going to take some time to be able to to learn and grow and to build. And so, but I will say we made mistakes where we've taken free agents, and it is a bear when you do it. Yeah. I just want to make sure that's very clear. Ideally, bring them in through the young, through the draft, bring them in young, develop them with your right coach. Hopefully it's the right coach. Again, I remember, and I won't even get into the names right now because it agitates when we talk about them, and it agitates me how it went down, right? I mean, you get a lot of people, you get both coaches and personnel men who are like, we need people in here right now along this O-line, and we can pay them for a couple years and everything is good. And before you know it, crap hits the fan and they're just not playing well. And then you've wasted, you're on the hook for 2 or 3 years, and then you're past the puke point. Then it gets really, really complicated.
Well, that was what, I was talking to Jack on the Easterby on the phone today a little bit. It was that whole thing. It's like those things make for, desperation makes for some bad cap situations, right? And, we had a really good, I think, a few questions here, but I like this one from William Jones, a frequent listener to the show, is the concept of the blind side being the best side of pass rush a fallacy, thinking of weak link nature of football. Yeah, I think, it is like your point about drafting is so well taken for two reasons. One, that you're never going to get a better value than getting a $25 million left tackle or right tackle for pennies on the dollar in the draft, right? And so Tristan Wirfs is a huge reason that they won the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay, because that you lock him in at right tackle, he's amazing, and you get such a surplus, and then you can go around and take that surplus and put it in other places, right? You can put it at left guard. You can overspend for for a center. Like, you think about the reason the Chiefs can overspend for Jawan Taylor is because they hit on Creed Humphrey in the second round and hit on Trey Smith in the sixth round. Like, you're getting, let's say 25 million of value from those players for a few $1,000,000. Now you can take that money and spend it elsewhere and fortify those weak link systems. The other part, and this is learned, in my time, consulting for Madden when I was working at PFF, but it's also, they call it teams and schemes. If you change teams or change schemes, it's hard to predict, right? So when you draft a guy and develop him, he likes it in Atlanta. He likes it in the building. He likes the food that the people, he likes your scheme, all that stuff. And there's less unpredictability. You bring a guy in from another program, you just don't know. The guy might be a complete jerk to the other players on the team. He might not get along well. His girlfriend might hate the city. I don't know, but there's a bunch of stuff that you don't know. And that's why the draft is so important. And that's why it's such a spectacle. And that's why if you come to this channel on the 27th, you will see me and Thomas for the first Sumer Sports draft show.